All right, guys, gather around, because today we're talking about a piece of kit that Glock 19X owners have been begging for. If you've ever run a 19X, you already know the deal. It's a unique animal. That frame isn't just another Glock frame. It's got that little lip at the bottom, that odd flare that throws every single aftermarket Magwell off its game. And for years, shooters have asked the same question: where's the Magwell that actually fits this thing? Well, until now, the answer was nowhere. I've lost track of how many conversations I've had with shooters on the range, all saying the same thing. They love the 19X, but they want the speed and control of a Magwell, and nothing on the market would lock down properly. Every attempt either rattled, dug into your hand, or just flat out didn't fit. That frustration was real. You could feel it when guys would show up to classes with tape or makeshift fixes, just trying to make reloads faster. But let's be honest, that's not the standard we demand. If you're running a defensive pistol, it needs to be flawless. So the crew down in Nashville decided to do something about it. They went back to the drawing board and pulled from the DNA of one of the most popular designs in their lineup, the GS Fast Magwell. This wasn't just a copy-paste job. No, they spent months figuring out how to make it work with the one Glock frame that had been snubbing aftermarket Magwells since day one. The solution? Precision engineering, anodized aluminum, FDE finish that matches the slide like it was born there. Here's what's beautiful about it. It doesn't just fit the odd 19X frame. It's designed to play nice with your backstrap extensions too. That's huge, because any serious Glock shooter knows you can't compromise grip fitment. It's got to work with your hand, not against it. They thought through every single detail. The screws bury flush so nothing tears at your palm during recoil. The plug locks in tight without leaving sharp edges. Every piece of it screams purpose-built. And let me tell you why this matters. A Magwell isn't just about looking tactical, it's about performance. It's about shaving off fractions of seconds when you're reloading under pressure. It's about giving your support hand a home, a leverage point to drive your grip higher into the frame. The higher your grip, the more authority you've got over that muzzle flip. You're no longer chasing the sights after every shot. Instead, you're stacking rounds where you want them fast and controlled. Now imagine running rapid strings with your 19X. Without a Magwell, your reloads feel sloppy. With this new GS Fast Magwell, suddenly the mags funnel home like they're guided by rails. That's the difference between fumbling and firing, between hesitation and control, between being average and being dialed in. But we're only scratching the surface here. The real test is in how this thing installs, how it feels once it's locked on, and whether it can survive the abuse we put our guns through. And trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens when this aluminum beast meets recoil, sweat, and real-world shooting. So we put that aluminum workhorse onto a range gun and stopped theorizing. Installation was a 5-minute affair on a well-used 19X that had seen classes in a dozen drills. No shims, no jury-rigged fixes, no profanity. The plug slides in, the set screw buries flush, and the Magwell snaps into place like it was meant to be there all along. That first click told you everything. No wobble, no gap, no fight. It's the kind of fit that makes a gunsmith nod and an armorer smile, small things that matter under stress. First drills were slow, deliberate reloads. We wanted to prove the funneling before we tested speed. The mag lips kissed the opening and seated clean. Then we pushed the tempo. Rapid strings at 3 yards, transitions, failure drills, and then reloads under sight picture pressure. Picture this. The gun in your hand, support thumb pressed high, elbow tucked, eyes on the next target. And when your support hand slams a fresh magazine, it slips home with guided certainty. No fumbling, no scraping the knuckle. That's when the Magwell stopped being an accessory and started being a tool. Control is the real headline here. Drive your support hand higher on the frame and the muzzle climbs less. That's physics and leverage, plain and simple. With the Magwell giving a consistent purchase, shooters found themselves punching tighter groups on rapid strings. Not fantasy measurable tightening. The difference between seeing the shots land and chasing them. For anyone training for real-world speed, that's a game changer. Durability under sweat and grit matters as much as fit. We threw everything at it, rapid fire followed by a sandbag slung near the berm for dust, then a dash of rain during cleanup. Anodized aluminum with a Type 3 finish, it held color and edges. The screws stayed put. Threads remained true. After hundreds of rounds, there was wear at the high points, sure, but nothing that would compromise function. That's what you want visible. Character from use, not catastrophic failure. There's also the tactile element. The designers avoided a protruding screw head where your palm rides. That single detail fixes a problem most companies miss until someone files a complaint. When your hand rides up and locks, you're not being poked by hardware. You're being anchored to the grip. That's subtle until it's not, until your last rapid mag changes in a class feel as clean as your first. Now, let's talk trade-offs. Aluminum magwells add a touch of weight on the tail of the pistol. For some, that helps balance. For others, it's a change. This particular design keeps the weight modest and low on the frame so it doesn't upset draw stroke or holster fit much. Yes, you'll want to check holster clearance, always does, but the payoff is speed and control without sacrificing everyday ergonomics. Finally, this thing isn't for flash. It's for function. It works with factory magazines and with the extended bases folks love for a faster index. It doesn't fight your backstrap choices. It gives you a repeatable contact point every time your support hand finds the gun. If you're training for reliability, speed, or just plain better recoil management, this Magwell turns a quirky frame into a practical race gun. But there's more. Real users pushed harder, tried alternate mags, and even abused it. What they discovered next crossed the line from interesting to surprising. The verdict and lasting impact, what they discovered next, crossed the line from interesting to surprising. After dozens of classes, after hundreds of rounds through hot guns and range rigs, a pattern emerged that wasn't just about fit. It became obvious the Magwell changed the way shooters thought about that frame. Guys who had tuned their draw stroke around quirks started adjusting their grip, their reload cue, their split-second sequencing. It wasn't cosmetic, it rewired muscle memory. First, arrest the usual debate. Yes, this is an aftermarket add-on. Yes, some holsters will need minor trimming or a custom shell. But here's the trade-off. Invest a few minutes once to verify holster clearance and you unlock repeatable reloads. When a shooter slams a fresh magazine, the mag funnels on like the gun has rails for it. That repeatability turns panic reloads into practiced movements. You stop guessing where the magazine will bite. You stop breaking sight picture to wrestle hardware. That's operational value. Second, the recoil story. With the GS Fast Magwell in place, shooters drove their support hand higher and found the muzzle climb diminished. The effect is mechanical, not mystical. Driving leverage closer to the bore axis reduces rotation. Put another way, the gun behaves like it has its own stabilizer when you index your hands correctly. The immediate payoff is faster follow-up shots and tighter rapid groups. That's the sort of performance metric you can feel in training and see on the target. Durability, the Type 3 anodization held up under sweat, dust, and deliberate abuse. The aluminum body took the hits without deforming. The steel screws maintained their grip without digging into palms. Wear showed where expected high contact spots showed patina. That's normal. Function never faltered. Not in classes, not in extended drills, not in the little disasters you bring to the range to see what your gear is made of. Now the human factor. Shooters who once dismissed Magwells as race-only toys started to appreciate the ergonomics. Competition shooters love them for speed. Defensive shooters value them for consistency under stress. Training instructors began recommending the Magwell as a low-risk modification that produces reliable benefits. That shift was important. It signaled the design wasn't a gimmick, it was a practical solution for a frame that needed one. Then came the surprises. Some users pushed the peripheral limits, different magazines, varied, base plates, aftermarket backstraps, and the Magwell stayed cooperative. It adapted under real conditions. It didn't lock you into one configuration. Instead, it amplified what you already preferred about your setup. That adaptability is the quiet killer feature. So what's the takeaway after all of this? If you run a Glock 19X and you value faster, cleaner reloads and firmer recoil control, this GS Fast Magwell is more than an accessory. It's an ergonomic upgrade that pays dividends in training and in any scenario where speed and consistency matter. It respects the platform's quirks and fixes them without compromise. If you want to test it, check fitment, press it into drills, and see how your split times respond. Try it under fatigue and in high-tempo work. The verdict is this: it delivers. It earns its place on the grip